I love traveling, especially solo. Whenever I have the time and enough savings, I take a trip. Some people think it's weird, but traveling alone genuinely makes me happy. It feels like meditation to me. After a long week at work, I decided to take a break. I always travel on a budget, so I prefer staying in guest rooms or small rentals. A co-worker suggested a place near Crystal Coast. After comparing options, I chose a beach house. The owner, Matthew Hudson, lived there with his daughter. They had another house on the same property. I'd seen the family photos online, so I booked it without hesitation. The date was set, and my excitement grew every day. I jumped in my car and headed toward my well-deserved break. The best thing about long drives is that you enjoy the journey before you even arrive. The view was breathtaking. Tall, rust-colored hills rose on one side, with endless blue ocean stretching on the other. I stopped at a gas station to confirm the exact directions because my GPS started glitching. The empty station stood there like a deserted island. A man walked out. He had a rough beard and smelled terrible. His clothes were filthy, and he looked at me like a petty thief sizing someone up. Without stepping out of my car, I asked, "Can you help me with this address?" He looked at the address on my phone. His expression changed. He gave me a disturbing smile and said, "Take the next left, then a right." "I see. Thanks. Have fun." The way he said, "have fun," made me uneasy. The rest of the drive, I kept thinking he must have given me the wrong directions. But when I arrived near the beach house, I realized I was wrong. The property stood there like a perfect retreat for travelers. I honked, and a man in his 50s came running to the gate. He opened it, and I drove inside. "Welcome to my beach house. I'm Matthew Hudson, your host. Thank you for having me." He escorted me to the guest house. The small wooden cottage was perfect for a solo traveler like me. The balcony opened directly onto the ocean. I couldn't wait to drop my bags and dive into the ocean. Hudson was very polite. He handed me the keys and said, "My daughter is preparing lunch. Would you like to join us?" I had already bought food, but out of courtesy, I said yes. After he left, I swam my heart out in the ocean. I hadn't felt that alive since my breakup with my ex. Floating in the cold water, staring at the white clouds, completely refreshed me. Later, I went to my room, got dressed, and headed out. Hudson's house was across the lawn. I knocked on the door and waited. The door opened with a soft click, and I found myself face to face with the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. "Yes, Mr. Hudson invited me." "Oh, you must be Jacob. Come in, please. Dad's in the basement. I'm Moli, by the way." Moli led me inside the house. Like a possessed lamb, I followed her. She sat me at the dining table and went to call her father. We had lunch, and the entire time I couldn't stop staring at Moli. I silently thanked God for choosing this B&B. After lunch, I thanked them and went back to my cottage. I took a nap. I was probably dreaming about Moli when a loud gunshot jolted me awake. I jumped out of bed and ran onto the porch. I had no doubt the gunshot came from Hudson's house. I rushed toward it. Another gunshot rang out, followed by a chilling scream. My legs froze. It was Moli. I slowly approached their house. I wasn't armed. I peeked through the porch window and witnessed a horrific scene. Hudson was slumped in a chair. Half his head was gone. Brain matter and blood were splattered across him and the white wall behind. Moli was tied to a chair, shot in the arm. Blood streamed down from the wound as she cried in pain. Two men in black masks stood in front of her. One threatened her. The other continued robbing the place. I called the police, telling them to hurry. Then a familiar voice echoed. I know he's here. Where is that man? I gave him directions. My stomach dropped. We'll kill that dog too and take all his money and belongings. Tell us where he is if you want to stay alive. He didn't come here. My father and I are the only ones here. Moli cried. Well, I guess I'll believe you. Your father's not around to say otherwise. Oh my God, it was the guy from the gas station. He had planned to rob the place before I arrived. That's why he said, "Have fun." I couldn't believe how disgusting this man was. Then I noticed a shovel lying on the ground outside. An idea formed. I threw a rock over the porch roof and ran to the back of the house, grabbing the shovel. I heard one of the men shout, "You stay here. I'll check the other cottage. I think this bitch is lying." As soon as he stepped outside, I slipped in through the back window and struck the other man with the shovel. He collapsed with a severe head injury and lost consciousness. I quickly untied Moli. We carefully made our way upstairs and locked ourselves inside a bedroom. "You should leave," she whispered. "You can't save me. He has a gun. He already killed my father. He'll kill me too. You shouldn't be part of this. Just go." But like I said, I fell for her the moment I saw her. And not just that, I wouldn't have left if it were anyone else in her place. I was trying to think of what to do when I heard heavy footsteps storm into the house. "You took my partner down," the man shouted. "I'm going to kill both of you." I heard him starting up the stairs. I knew I couldn't. I couldn't hold him off for long, but I had no choice. We were trapped. The man started pounding on the door, shouting, "Open the door, I know you're in there." I said, "Open it." Moli was trembling and losing a lot of blood. I knew that if I didn't get her to a hospital soon, she wouldn't make it. I tightened my grip on the shovel and walked straight to the door. "What are you doing? Are you going to open it?" she whispered. Sometimes the simplest plan works best. And it worked for me. Held the shovel firmly, took position, and yanked the door open. The man wasn't expecting it. He wasn't ready to fire. I didn't give him a second. I swung the shovel straight at his head. He collapsed, clutching his bleeding skull, dropping the gun. I grabbed it immediately and aimed it at him. One move, and he was done. You can guess the rest. The police arrived and arrested both thieves. We later found out he wasn't even the owner of the gas station. The real owner had been murdered and robbed by those same men. What's even more terrifying is that he could have killed me the moment he saw me at the station, but instead, he chose to play the perfect psychopath, and that little game cost him everything. It's been 2 years now. Moli and I are married. We're happy and we're expecting our first baby boy. I may not be the best storyteller, but I'll have one hell of a story to tell my son. That's how I met your mother. Hey guys, before we start the next story, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and if you're already subscribed, you're awesome. After high school, my sister and I decided to take a trip to the countryside. We booked a cabin so we could relax comfortably. Even though Riley was only a few months older than me, she always made me feel like the little one, so I usually listened to her. Her bossy side annoyed me sometimes, but she cared about me so much that I never really argued. We chose a small cabin in the woods, mostly because there was a beautiful waterfall nearby. We thought it would be perfect for our vacation. During the day, we planned to hike to the waterfall and enjoy nature, driving past endless cornfields while listening to birds chirping felt peaceful. I rolled down the window and let the breeze play with our hair. Riley turned up the music and we started chatting. We talked, we laughed. It was a great time. After about 2.5 hours on the road, we found ourselves on a dusty path surrounded by dense forest. The shadows of tall trees created a mysterious atmosphere. Riley lowered the music. "Do you hear that?" she asked. What? The sound of water falling from a cliff. We're close. I sped up when we reached an intersection. According to the GPS, our destination was to the right. Riley was right. The B&B was about 15 to 20 minutes from there. When we finally arrived, the cabin looked exactly like the pictures online. Tall pine trees surrounded it. A hiking trail led into the woods on the left side. We got out of the car and called the owner. He told us we'd be alone there and that the key was under the doormat. Riley opened the door and we went inside. The cabin was cozy and neat. A small living room was connected to the kitchen on the right. Across from the living room were 2 bedrooms. One faced the hiking trail, the other faced the horizon and the pine trees. I chose the second one. Waking up to the sunrise sounded better. The only small inconvenience was the bathroom. It was located outside, behind the cabin. The idea of going out in the middle of the night to use it scared me a little, but Riley didn't seem bothered. We had no choice, so I went to shower while Riley started cooking. We had brought everything with us. I turned on the faucet and cold water poured down. I was shampooing my hair, humming to myself in a good mood, when a strange feeling crept over me, like I wasn't alone in that bathroom. My eyes were covered in shampoo, so I couldn't open them. I told myself it was nothing, just my tired mind playing tricks on me. I started rinsing my hair. Then my hand brushed the back of my head, and I felt someone else's hand touching me. I quickly washed my face and opened my eyes. No one was there. I checked the lock. It was secure. I reassured myself. It was just travel fatigue. Back at the cabin, I saw Riley cooking lunch. "So, how was the shower?" she asked with a smile. I forced a laugh. Did you come to call me or something?" "Me? No. I've been cooking this whole time." "Why?" "Nothing. I just freaked myself out in the shower." "Don't worry, you'll get used to it. I know the bathroom setup is weird, but lots of cabins are like that. And you can wake me up at night if you're scared to go alone. I can protect my little sister," she teased. "Shut up. Just focus on the food." I didn't press it. She was already making fun of me. I convinced myself it was nothing and let it go. After a delicious lunch, we decided to take a short walk. The sun was setting, so we avoided the hiking trail. It would be risky coming back in the dark. We wandered through the woods when I noticed a tall structure in the distance. "What's that?" I pointed and started walking towards it. Riley followed, confused. After pushing past tree branches and small plants, we reached it. It wasn't a tower, it was a grave. The structure was a marble monument built over a burial site. Who would bury someone in a place like this? Riley said. The inscription read, "To my beloved Haran. I hope she is at peace now." "And why didn't the owner tell us?" I said, annoyed. "That's not cool. Come on." Riley replied, "Why would anyone tell their guests there's a grave next to the cabin? Think about it. No one would book the place." "Yeah, because spending days in a forest cabin with a grave beside it is pretty creepy for normal people." She laughed at me, calling me childish. But standing there in front of the grave, the shower incident came rushing back to me. Something deep inside told me we shouldn't be there. "I wonder how she died," Riley said. She started circling the tombstone, examining it. The sun was setting, painting the sky red and orange. Birds were returning to their nests, and the forest's nocturnal creatures were waking up. What disturbed me even more was the ending of the epitaph. "May she rest in peace now." What did that mean? Did Haran have a troubled life? What kind of trouble? Why wasn't she at peace while she was alive? I was drowning in my thoughts when I heard a sudden sound behind me. I turned around, and Riley jumped at me shouting, "Boo, not funny, Riley." I got irritated and started walking back to the cabin. "Okay, sorry, you're overthinking it," she said, following me and apologizing for her stupid joke. We went inside, and after a while, I forgave her. I had to. Her repeated apologies were getting annoying. Night fell. We started drinking to relax and forget about the grave. Drunk Riley talked a lot. She went on about her ex and why it didn't work out. I chose not to respond. Eventually, she'd tire herself out. After drinking quite a bit, neither of us could stand straight. Right before going to bed, I needed to pee, so I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. Riley was already asleep. Even though I was scared, I didn't wake her. As I walked toward the bathroom, the forest sounds became painfully clear. Owls hooted. Coyotes howled in the distance. I sat down and started relieving myself when I heard footsteps outside. It's nothing, I told myself. After I finished, I locked the door from the outside. That's when my eyes landed on a bush nearby. Under the pale moonlight, I saw a woman standing beside it. I couldn't see her face clearly, but even in the dark, her eyes gleamed like a hyena's. Who's there? No response. Riley, is that you? I'm done with your stupid jokes. The woman took a step forward, and a thin beam of moonlight fell across her body. That's when I noticed how enormous her belly was. What the hell? Why would a pregnant woman be wandering through the woods at this hour? Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help? She just stood there staring at me with those strange glowing eyes. Then I remembered I had a flashlight. I pulled it from my back pocket and aimed it at her. She was gone. There was no one there but me. I rubbed my eyes and looked around. Nothing. Confused, I went back to the cabin. I opened the door and dragged my drunk body to bed. I decided to sleep on it and tell Riley in the morning. I don't remember when I passed out, but around 3 a.m., I felt something beside me. The room was pitch dark. I moved my hand across the bed and felt someone lying next to me. I assumed I must have stumbled into Riley's room while completely drunk. She was pressed against me, leaving almost no space. I tried to push her away without waking her. Then my hand touched her stomach, and I felt something wet spreading across my palm. Riley, did you pee or what? That's disgusting. Why do you drink if you can't handle it? As I said that, I switched on the lamp and jumped out of bed the second I saw my hands. They were soaked in thick blood. The smell turned my stomach. I looked at the bed. A dead woman was lying there. Her throat was slit, her vocal cords hanging loose. But the true horror revealed itself when my eyes moved to her stomach. It was the same pregnant woman I had seen near the bushes. Her abdomen was torn open. The tiny hand of her baby hung lifeless outside. I can't describe how terrifying that sight was. Suddenly, the woman's eyes shifted toward me, and she blinked twice. I collapsed to the floor, screaming at the top of my lungs. We left the cabin the very next morning. When Riley heard my scream and rushed in, she found me unconscious on the floor. I never told her what I saw, but later I started researching that cabin. I contacted locals to find out what had happened there. What they told me still haunts me. Long ago, a couple lived there. They were happy, until the husband suspected his wife of having an affair. One night, consumed by rage and jealousy, he killed her. She was 8 months pregnant. The man was completely deranged. After killing his wife and unborn child, he even built a tomb for them. I don't know if he's still alive, but I had a massive argument with the B&B owner for renting out a haunted cabin without warning guests. After graduating college, my girlfriend Sally and I took a trip to Alaska. We couldn't afford anything fancy, and honestly, we didn't want to. We were both outdoorsy people and wanted to reconnect with nature. After spending 4 years crammed into tiny dorm rooms in the city, at first we looked for cheap resorts, but we ended up renting a small bed and breakfast in the mountains with easy access to hiking trails. The booking website showed the hosts a small family with a mother, a slightly overweight father, and 2 adult sons posing in front of their wooden cabin. The lodge cost less than most of the resorts we had looked at, and since the hosts lived up in the mountains, we figured we could ask them for help if anything went wrong on the trail. It seemed like a win-win. Shortly after leaving the airport, my girlfriend and I took a taxi to the base of the mountain where the cabin was located, then hiked the rest of the way. We followed a barely visible dirt path winding up through dense, snow-covered forest. A thick layer of snow made the trail hard to follow at times. stairs. But we managed. We reached the cabin just as the sun was setting. As much as we had enjoyed the views during the hike, we were completely exhausted when we arrived. I knocked on the cabin door while my girlfriend caught her breath. About a minute later, the door opened. Standing there were the two adult sons we had seen in the online photos. They looked more worn than they had in the pictures. Their faces were lined with wrinkles that hadn't been there before, and they seemed thinner than they should have been. Still, they welcomed us warmly and offered us hot coffee when they saw how tired we were. The older one introduced himself as Rick, the younger as Dan. They led us to a large table near a fireplace where a pot hung suspended above the flames. "You came at the perfect time," Rick said. "We'd just finished cooking dinner. Want to join us?" "With pleasure," Sally replied. "What are we having?" Dan lifted the pot and set it on the table. "Bear stew. We hunted it ourselves a few days ago. Ever tried bear?" "No, never," I said, "but I'm excited to." "Me too," my girlfriend added. The four of us sat together and ate what was, at the time, the most delicious meal of my life. We talked while we ate, and eventually the topic of family came up. When we asked about their parents, they told us their mom and dad were staying in a nearby town. An off-season snowstorm had passed through recently, and they had decided it was safer for their parents to stay there rather than remain in the wilderness. Rick mentioned how lucky we were that the storm had cleared just in time for our arrival. If we had come 2 days earlier, there would have been nothing but snow and wind. After dinner, my girlfriend and I thanked them for the delicious meal and headed upstairs for some well-earned rest. "They seem really nice, don't you think?" my girlfriend said once we were alone, lying in each other's arms. "Yeah, they seem great. Their parents are lucky to have sons like them." "Yeah, I hope our kids turn out like that." "Yeah, I hope so too." "Wait, what?" That's when she dropped the bomb. She was pregnant. She had wanted it to be a surprise and planned to tell me in the summer. I was shocked, but at the same time thrilled at the thought of becoming a father. We spent the whole night talking about baby names until we eventually fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up to the sound of Rick and Dan arguing. I was confused. It sounded like they were right outside our room. I only caught fragments of their conversation. "No, we can't. That was a one-time thing. We can't risk doing it again." "Come on, you're curious too, aren't you?" I didn't listen to the rest. It was probably just a normal brotherly argument, so I went back to sleep. The next morning, I decided to go hiking in the mountains. My girlfriend wanted to come, but she still looked tired, and I was worried about our baby. So I told her to stay at the cabin and rest. She agreed reluctantly. We all had breakfast together with Rick and Dan before I left. We ate the same delicious stew from the night before. We all agreed the bear meat was incredible. Then I headed out to enjoy the scenery. I tried to focus on nature, but my thoughts kept drifting back to my pregnant girlfriend. What if she needed help while I was gone? What kind of man would I be if I wasn't there for the mother of my child when she needed me? Eventually, I decided to turn back. I would check on her and then go hiking with her once she had rested. When I returned to the cabin, I pushed the door open as quietly as possible. I wanted to surprise her, get a little playful revenge for the surprise she had given me the night before. But I was the one who ended up shocked and horrified. Lying on the table where we had eaten breakfast was my girlfriend. Her throat was cut, her stomach sliced open. Rick and Dan stood over her with butcher knives, carving her body into pieces like livestock. Their mouths dripped with saliva, like starving dogs staring at a steak. Dan pulled something small and pink from her abdomen and walked towards the fireplace. When he lifted the lid of the pot hanging over the fire to drop it inside, I realized with unbearable horror what it was. It was the 3-month-old fetus of my child. They were going to cook my girlfriend and our baby in the same pot they had used for the stew, the same stew we had eaten days before. I couldn't look anymore. I ran. I followed the trail down to the nearest town and called the police. When the police searched the cabin, they found my girlfriend's dismembered body in the freezer, but she wasn't the only one. Next to her were the equally butchered remains of Rick and Dan's parents. The meat and stew they had served us hadn't been bare at all. It was their own parents. They had killed them for food while starving during the snowstorm that had passed through a few days before I arrived. Rick and Dan were nowhere to be found. I assumed they had fled when I didn't return from my hike. To this day, I still wonder if they're out there somewhere, killing people just to satisfy their twisted hunger.